Jordan Brown and the Ragin Cajuns take down the herd in the showdown in the Sun Belt. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Great matchup on Saturday night in the Sun Belt. It was Marshall, it was the Cajuns, and in this case, it was all Ragin Cajuns. Take down the Marshall Thundering Herd, 77-67. Cajuns got out to a 6-0 lead in the first half, got out to a 7-0 lead in the second half. The closest Marshall got in the first half was 6-4. Closest they got in the second half was 7-56-49. We'll get to that. Jordan Brown just could not be handled. He had 26 points and 20 rebounds. Let me see, at half, I got it here from the tweet, or I did have it here at the time. I think he had 17 and 14. There it is. 17 points, 14 rebounds when it was 36-28. And the Herd had cut it there. They got a couple of key buckets while the Cajuns missed some. And Andrew Taylor actually hit his only bucket of the first half as a three as time was winding down at the end of the first half. Brown with his 17 points and 14 rebounds in the first half. Marshall had 11. So Jordan Brown out-rebounded the Herd on his own. Tavion Kinsey had 12 points in the first half. He actually finished up. He had a pretty good game, 28 points, 10 of 21 shooting, not bad, 7 of 10 free throws, only 1 of 2 three-pointers. Andrew Taylor did not have a good ball game. I think it was 1 of 10 in the first half, 3 of 15 overall, finished with 7 points, and that really was the difference of the game, that Kinsey did not have any help. He did the best that he could to keep the Herd into it. But Jordan Brown had Greg Williams, who I think is his 5th straight. Let me check that out. His 5th straight game with 20 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. The Lafayette product out of LCA Lafayette Christian Academy. Went to St. John's, transferred back to home. He had 20 points. Folks, the point guard, very efficient from the floor, 4 of 6 field goals, 4 of 4 from the free throw line. He had 12 points. And Lewis, the second, is it Terrell Lewis? Terrence Lewis. He had 8 points, but he also grabbed 10 rebounds. And the Cajuns out-rebounded the Herd 47-25. Can't win ball games when you're getting out-rebounded by 22. Offensive rebounds, the Cajuns had 16 to the Herd's 25 total. So all Ragin Cajuns in this one. The Cajuns take sole possession. Well, they're not sole possession. They are tied for first with Southern Miss. Very odd that the standings on ESPN.com have Louisiana second, considering the Cajuns beat Southern Miss. That's coming up. We'll talk about that later on. It'll be Showdown in the Sun Belt 2. That is Thursday night. But Louisiana and Southern Miss, both 10-2. Southern Miss listed ahead of the Cajuns is going to have 21 wins to the Cajuns 20. Marshall falls to 8-4. They are 2 games back, 19-6 overall. But again, it really was the inside game of the Cajuns, as we previewed, against the outside game of Marshall. And Marshall, they hit some threes. 7 of 20 isn't bad, right? But overall, they only shot 38% from the floor, compared to the Cajuns, who shot exactly 50% from the floor. And if the Cajuns, specifically Jordan Brown, hit free throws, Jordan was only 6 of 13 from the free throw line. You know, again, I'm not one of those guys, well, he hit all his free throws. Well, all right, not going to do that. But if he hit 4 more free throws, he would have had a 30-20 night. They were only 15 of 26 from the free throw line. The game did get a little bit interesting. So remember, let's see, the ball game beforehand, I guess it was Texas State Why am I thinking? Was it Texas State? I thought there was a different ball game in there where they were just kind of dominating. Maybe it was Texas State. And he didn't call Bob Marlin didn't call a Bob Marlin special. Let me explain to what that is. A Bob Marlin special is he likes to call timeouts, and I gave him grief about this when I was covering the Ragin Cajuns. This is not anything new. The Cajuns go on a run, and then he calls timeout because he thinks the team is going to get yelled at. The other team is going to get yelled at. And plus, Marshall was down timeouts. Like, why are you giving them a timeout to calm down? Now, in this ball game, a couple of games ago, he just did not call one. I guess it was Texas State. He just didn't call one, and they kind of ran away and hid from Texas State on Thursday night, I guess. Why do I think it was a different ball game? But maybe that was it. But in this one, he did call a timeout, and they actually had a 16-point lead. He called timeout in the second half. It got to 18 because they got the first bucket after the timeout. Yeah, well, it got 16, 49-33. Joe Charles made a three. The Cajuns call timeout. Kinsey misses a jumper. They get it to 51-33. And then the next thing you know, it's 56-49. So they went from 18 down, getting ready to be blown out by 30, and it's a 7-point game. But they never got any closer to that, did the Herd. So nice win for the Cajuns, really impressive. So they've beaten, as this goes, the Cajuns, they have beaten Southern Miss and Marshall. I mean, they only have 2 losses. Those were the first 2 ball games. And they've won like 10 in a row. And their only 2 losses are to Old Dominion and Coastal. How about this? They actually had lost 3 straight. They followed up their loss at Texas with losses to Coastal and Old Dominion. Those 2 ball games close, but 2 very different ball games. They kind of were leading Coastal Carolina most of the second half and let it slip away and fell too far behind Old Dominion to catch up at the end. But, I mean, they've blown out Southern Miss. They've blown out Marshall. Their hardest game, I think, so far in the Sun Belt is South Alabama. South Alabama could have beaten the Cajuns, and that was without Kevin Samuel. It was very odd, and it was a 79-76 ball game. The Cajuns could have won that basketball game. South Alabama is finishing up the season at the Ragin Cajuns. One more note here before we go on to the rest of the Sun Belt. They did something a little bit different you don't see very often. They had their senior night. It was a big crowd, over 5,000, over 5,300. I think the biggest crowd since 2018. And because it's the final Saturday night home game of the season, right? They're on the road to Southern Miss, then Troy. They're home versus Monroe. Then they're at James Madison. And then they finish up with like a Wednesday-Friday deal. Because of the Sun Belt Conference tournament the following week. So they're trying to give as much time as possible so it's not a Thursday, Saturday. So the Ragin Cajuns looking ahead, let's have senior night Saturday night in front of a huge crowd in what is supposed to be a big ball game, and it was. And the Cajuns played well. And that was a pretty smart thing to do because who knows what's going to happen Friday night. I haven't looked at the schedule, but they very well could be going up against, softball and baseball, depending on the schedules. And so good job by the Ragin Cajuns to maximize that one ball game as it is their last Saturday night home game this season. All right, let's take a timeout. We will go over the rest of the Sun Belt. South Alabama all of a sudden is hot. Watch out for the South Alabama Jaguars. But let me tell you about Built Bar. Again, this came in big time during the Senior Bowl. Are you looking for a delicious treat but don't want all of the fat and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me and when you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then, man, I've got just the thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built bars from Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. I get mine at Sam's. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's, you can run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. My box at Sam's comes with cookies and cream and salted caramel, plus the bonus coconut puffs, which is actually really good. I'm not a coconut guy, to be honest with you. Never been a coconut guy, but the bar is pretty good. Again, it should be noted, it is what I would consider, as someone who've had protein bars a lot, it's a snack. It is not a meal because first of all, it's only 130 calories, but you are getting all those grams of protein. Also, it's a big help. You know, when I could have reached all week for Reese's Cups, I reached for Built Bar instead. And so that's much healthier, and my waistline approves. And I didn't put on nearly as much weight last week during Senior Bowl week as I may have thought. All right. Again, go to Built.com or Walmart or Sam's to pick up your Built Bars today. All right, let's continue with the Sun Belt. It is Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. All of a sudden, South Alabama has, won 3 in a row. They beat UL. First of all, it's their it's only their second winning streak of the season. The other one was 3 games as well. But maybe they are coming together. Isaiah Moore, 31 points, 13 of 19 shooting. He was unstoppable again. I don't understand it. He really is a joy to watch. He is the antithesis of what guard play is, right? He is the opposite of Steph Curry. All his shots are within 2 feet of the bucket. He may have actually taken like a 10-foot floater. But other than that, everything is within 2 feet. Actually made all his free throws, 5 of 5. And South Alabama was really in control of this ball game. Jamari Blackman made a run. I think he had like 11 points and then maybe scored 12 in like the last 3 minutes. He finishes with 23 points for ULM. Former South Alabama guard Tariq LaCure, he had 15 points as he was 7 of 15 from the floor. One of the big differences, though, is that South Alabama, they played 8 guys. Jamar Franklin played 4 minutes, but Greg Parham played 25 off the bench. Marshall Kieran gave him 10 minutes off the bench, whereas ULM had 3 guys that played 40 minutes. Jamari Blackman, Langston Powell, and Tariq LaCure all played 40 minutes. Thomas Howell played 34. Victor Bafuto played 18, and Tavion Kinsey played 28. So they only played 6 guys, and 4 of them played almost the entire game. And that's the way they did it the game before. So they may have been really exhausted. It was going to be very difficult for them to come back. Should be mentioned that South Alabama hit most of their free throws. Kevin Samuel was 0 for 2, but the team overall was 16 of 21. Here's going to be the key for South Alabama, as it's really been the key this season. They got to make their threes. If they can make their threes, they can hang with the Cajuns. They can hang with Marshall. They can hang with Southern Miss. They've almost beaten the Cajuns. They've almost beaten Southern Miss. And it doesn't take that much more, right? 4 of 18 is not great. But if you make it 6 of 18, that's 33%. And if you hit 7 of 18, that's like 50% of 2s. So they needed to make a few more threes. And if they ever do get hot, and Judah Brown hit 3 of the 4 threes that they made, but if they ever get hot, they're going to be dangerous. I can't find the tweet anymore, but basically, if you want, the goal for South needs to be to avoid the first day of the tournament. They want to buy. All right. It's going to be almost impossible to win this tournament, although there are days off in the tournament, which is kind of strange because it goes over like the course, not only of the weekend, but into the following week. So they do get an off day, but you want to avoid that. And you just want you'd love to double buy And it's not out of the question that they get that. It's not very likely that they get that. They'd have to win out, and they do have to play Southern Miss at home, and they have to go to Louisiana. So not likely, but this team could very well finish, as crazy as it sounds. They could finish 9-9 in the Sun Belt. I mean, they were 2-7 3 games ago. 2-7. They're 5-7. They are at Troy, which is a big ball game. I think Troy won the other night. We'll get to that in a second. But if they beat Troy, that's 4 in a row. Then they're 6-7. They get App State at home. We'll say that's a win. 7-7. Hartford's out of conference. Even if you lose to Southern Miss and make it 7-8, and you beat Monroe at home, that's 8-8. You go to Texas State, not easy, but you win that ball game, and then you lose to the Cajuns, you're 9-9. That's crazy. Now, if you win out, you're 11-7, and not totally out of the question, not very likely. Marshall and James Madison only have 4 losses between them, and it turns out that South Alabama will not play Marshall. They did beat James Madison, so they have the tiebreaker with James Madison if somehow they get that far. Long way to go for that, right? They got to beat Troy on Thursday, and that is no small feat. Troy seems to have turned it around. All right, let's take one more break. We will come back and discuss the rest of the Sun Belt. Southern Miss keeps pace with the Cajuns. Not an easy ball game. We warned them, and they were still able to. Let me tell you about FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features. They make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can get the bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Dave Schultz back with a Locked On Sunbelt. There we go. Hit the wrong button. Your team every day. All right, let's quickly go through the rest of the Sunbelt from Saturday night. If we can find that screen here. Here we go. All right, so we told you South Alabama beat Monroe 72-64. Although I'm not sure we told you the final score. But 72-64, South Alabama over Monroe. Isaiah Moore, again, 31 points. Southern Miss trailing at half against Georgia State. Georgia State is tough at home. Not very good on the road, but pretty tough at home. Southern Miss prevails 79-71. That makes this Thursday's ball game. Showdown in the Sun Belt 2. Cajuns at Southern Miss. That much more important. Southern Miss 21-4, 10-2 in the Sun Belt. Georgia State 10-14, 3-9 in the Sun Belt. I think I'm going to get his name right. Felipe Hassey, who led Southern Miss with 26 points, 8 of 11 shooting, 7 for 7 from the free throw line, and he comes through in a big way because Austin Crowley, he struggled. He only had 8 points, 2 of 11 shooting. So Hassey comes up in a big way. In just 25 minutes, he scored 26 points. That was the difference as Southern Miss had to come from behind to beat Georgia State. Arkansas State gets their second win in conference play. They beat Coastal Carolina 73-57. Big second half blows out the Chanticleers. And let's see here. Arkansas State was led by Arkansas State, all kinds of injury issues. They had a bunch of guys out Thursday night against South Alabama, and never really wrong direction. I think, have they lost 4 games in a row? And they have Texas State, the Cajuns, Georgia State, and Old Dominion. So Georgia Southern is real. Southern 12-13, 5-7 in the Sun Belt. As we mentioned, Troy beats Texas State 68-64. Good to see Mason Harrell back. Mason Harrell back for the Bobcats. He had 20 points. Williams, though, leads Troy with 19 points and 7 rebounds as Troy rights the ship. They had lost 3 in a row, and they were some ugly losses. I mean, they got blown out by the Cajuns. They got blown out by South Alabama. And they got blown out by Southern Miss. So, Scott Cross's team settles down. They got a big one against the hot South Alabama Jaguars. The standing, all right, and South Alabama get a top 4. The South Alabama, they'll get 8. They will get the Cajuns. The Jaguars, they would be ahead of what it would be at that point in time. So all these games all matter. I'm not sure it matters too much if you're, let's see here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm not sure if that matters. So you're seating there. But you just definitely don't want to be, 11, 12, 13, or 14. That's what you're trying to avoid. All right. And maybe trying to avoid the Cajuns for as long as possible. I think they're the best team in the conference, although for some reason, South Alabama probably played their best game without their big guy, Kevin Samuel, in the middle. Marshall Carring had a huge ball game in that game. Okay. Thanks very much for tuning in to a Lockdown on Sunbelt. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. Again, we're going to continue to try and track down some coaches. We're going to try and get some baseball coaches and some softball coaches. We're not too far away. In fact, softball starts this week. And baseball starts the following week. So we'll see if we can land some coaches here for Locked on Sunbelt, your team every day. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again on Wednesday.